The mouth, which nourishes the body by means of material food, also diffuses abroad speech and thought. Our flesh renews itself of its own accord while we are thinking about it. The olfactory organs, through which the vital air reaches the lungs, communicate all the perfumes of the world to the brain, the smell of flowers, of woods, of trees, of the sea. The ear, which enables us to communicate with our fellow men, has also allowed us to invent music, to create dreams, happiness infinite, and even physical pleasure by means of sound. But one might say that the cynical and cunning Creator wished to prohibit man from ever ennobling and idealizing his intercourse with women. Nevertheless, man has found love, which is not a bad reply to that sly deity, and he has adorned it with so much poetry that woman often forgets the sensual part of it. Those among us who are unable to deceive themselves have invented vice and refined debauchery, which is another way of laughing at God and paying homage, immodest homage, to beauty. But the normal man begets children just like an animal coupled with another by law. Look at that woman. Is it not abominable to think that such a jewel, such a pearl, born to be beautiful, admired, feted and adored, has spent 11 years of her life in providing heirs for the Comte de Mascaret? Bernard Grandin replied with a laugh, "There is a great deal of truth in all that, but very few people would understand you." Salnus became more and more animated. "Do you know how I picture God myself?" he said. "As an enormous creative organ beyond our ken, who scatters millions of worlds into space, just as one single fish would deposit its spawn in the sea. He creates because it is his function as God to do so, but he does not know what he is doing, and is stupidly prolific in his work, and is ignorant of the combinations of all kinds which are produced by his scattered germs. The human mind is a lucky little local passing accident, which was totally unforeseen, and condemned to disappear with this earth, and to recommence, perhaps here or elsewhere, the same or different, with fresh combinations of eternally new beginnings. We owe it to this little lapse of intelligence on his part, that we are very uncomfortable in this world, which was not made for us, which had not been prepared to receive us, to lodge and feed us, or to satisfy reflecting beings, and we owe it to him also that we have to struggle without ceasing against what are still called the designs of Providence, when we are really refined and civilized beings." Grandin, who was listening to him attentively, as he had long known the surprising outbursts of his imagination, asked him, "Then you believe that human thought is the spontaneous product of blind divine generation?" "Naturally, a fortuitous function of the nerve centers of our brain, like the unforeseen chemical action due to new mixtures, and similar also to a charge of electricity caused by friction or the unexpected proximity of some substance, similar to all phenomena caused by the infinite and fruitful fermentation of living matter. But, my dear fellow, the truth of this must be evident to anyone who looks about him. If the human mind, ordained by an omniscient Creator, had been intended to be what it has become, exacting, inquiring, agitated, tormented, so different from mere animal thought and resignation, would the world, which was created to receive the beings which we now are, have been this unpleasant little park for small game, this salad patch, this wooded, rocky, and spherical kitchen garden where your improvident Providence has destined us to live naked, in caves or under trees, nourished on the flesh of slaughtered animals, our brethren, or on raw vegetables nourished by the sun and the rain? But it is sufficient to reflect for a moment, in order to understand that this world was not made for such creatures as we are. Thought, which is developed by a miracle in the nerves of the cells in our brain, powerless, ignorant, and confused as it is, and as it will always remain, makes all of us who are intellectual beings eternal and wretched exiles on earth. Look at this earth, as God has given it to those who inhabit it. Is it not visibly and solely made, planted and covered with forests for the sake of animals? What is there for us? Nothing. And for them everything, and they have nothing to do but to eat or go hunting and eat each other according to their instincts. For God never foresaw gentleness and peaceable manners. He only foresaw the death of creatures which were bent on destroying and devouring each other. Are not the quail, the pigeon, and the partridge the natural prey of the hawk? The sheep, the stag, and the ox that of the great flesh-eating animals, rather than meat to be fattened and served up to us with truffles, which have been unearthed by pigs for our special benefit? As to ourselves, the more civilized, intellectual, and refined we are, the more we ought to conquer and subdue that animal instinct which represents the will of God in us. And so, in order to mitigate our lot as brutes, we have discovered and made everything, beginning with houses, then exquisite food, sauces, sweetmeats, pastry, drinks, stuffs, clothes, ornaments, beds, mattresses, carriages, railways, and innumerable machines. Besides arts and sciences, writing and poetry. Every ideal comes from us, as do all the amenities of life, in order to make our existence as simple reproducers, for which divine providence solely intended us, less monotonous and less hard. Look at this theater. Is there not here a human world created by us, unforeseen and unknown to eternal fate, intelligible to our minds alone, a sensual and intellectual distraction which has been invented solely by and for that discontented and restless little animal, man? Look at that woman, Madame de Mascaret. God intended her to live in a cave, naked or wrapped up in the skins of wild animals. But is she not better as she is? But speaking of her, does anyone know why and how her brute of a husband, having such a companion by his side, and especially after having been boorish enough to make her a mother 7 times, has suddenly left her to run after bad women? Grandin replied, "Ah, my dear fellow, this is probably the only reason. He found that raising a family was becoming too expensive, and from reasons of domestic economy, he has arrived at the same principles which you lay down as a philosopher." Just then the curtain rose for the 3rd act, and they turned round, took off their hats, and sat down. 4. The Comte and Comtesse Mascaret were sitting side by side in the carriage which was taking them home from the opera, without speaking. But suddenly the husband said to his wife, "Gabrielle, what do you want?" "Don't you think that this has lasted long enough?" "What?" "The horrible punishment to which you have condemned me for the last 6 years." "What do you want? I cannot help it." "Then tell me which of them it is." "Never." "Think that I can no longer see my children or feel them around me without having my heart burdened with this doubt? Tell me which of them it is, and I swear that I will forgive you and treat it like the others." "I have not the right to do so." "Do you not see that I can no longer endure this life, this thought which is wearing me out, or this question which I am constantly asking myself, this question which tortures me each time I look at them? It is driving me mad.